Revealed. The incredible moment before my brother's wedding that transformed our family forever. Jake stood at the edge of the fading evening light, hands grease-stained and weary, the scent of oil and iron clinging to him like a second skin. The factory, once a vibrant heartbeat of their small Midwestern town, now loomed dark and menacing in the distance, a ghost of its former self. His thoughts drifted back to their mother, gone too soon. He felt the weight of his father's disabilities and his younger sister, Anna, clutching her stuffed bear in the quiet corners of their home. Life was hard, but Jake pushed through long shifts, resigned to keep his family afloat. But that day, everything changed as they gathered for Marcus' pre-wedding barbecue. Jake couldn't shake the dread pooling in his stomach. The laughter felt forced as he flipped burgers, the chatter an eerie backdrop to his growing tension. Lucy, the glowing bride-to-be, flitted around with the confidence of privilege, her radiant smile masking the condescension in her voice. "You know, Jake, it's never too late to find a real career," she said, an innocent tone draping her words. Like daggers, they cut through the mirth, leaving Jake's heart racing. The room stilled, eyes darting between him and Mark, who was visibly uncomfortable. With a clenched jaw, Jake felt anger bubbling inside him. How could someone so removed from their struggles be so dismissive? Memories flashed endless hours in the shop, neighbors who lost their jobs, each face wrinkled with worry. Suddenly, the realization hit him like a punch. The factory was shutting down. Fear rippled through the room as the laughter faded into whispers. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that heated moment, Jake felt a fire ignite within him. It wasn't just about his family anymore. It was about the livelihoods of everyone around them, friends who had partnered through thick and thin in this town. Rallied by this newfound purpose, he laid out a plan, calling on neighbors and coworkers to rise against the closure. The protest wasn't simply an act of rebellion. It was a reclaiming of pride, an assertion of their place in a world that too often forgot them. When Mark confronted him later, the explosive tension felt palpable. "Jake, you're playing with fire. Don't you care about my future?" Mark's voice was thin, fraying at the edges, the straps of brotherly love about to snap. Their confrontation spiraled into something deeply hurtful, peeling back layers of envy and resentment. Jake's heart ached, the loss of their once unbreakable bond choking him. The day of the wedding finally arrived. As he stood at the altar, the community's unexpected support unfolded like a warm embrace around him. Friends and neighbors filled the pews, a statement of solidarity. But just as important was the truth that hung in the air. Jake realized that the fractures in his heart, the conflict with Mark, wasn't out of hatred, but out of love and yearning for recognition. As the service progressed, he felt an overwhelming urge to share his truth, the thing that could change everything. Would he finally find the voice to bridge the divide? Or was this moment destined to splinter their family forever? Jake's heart raced as he stood at the altar, surrounded by faces he'd known his whole life. Each one held a piece of his past, beaming with a mixture of joy and concern. Mark stood stoically at the front, dressed in a sharp suit that felt foreign against Jake's worn jeans and a simple button-down. The ceremony shimmered with golden light, but inside, Jake could feel the shadows closing in. This wasn't just about Mark and Lucy. This was about everything they stood for. As vows were exchanged, every word felt heavy. He watched Lucy's eyes sparkle with dreamlike anticipation. For her, everything seemed to be a fairy tale, an escape from the realities that Jake faced daily. But that didn't mean he could ignore the truth. The factory looming over their lives like a dark cloud, waiting to unleash its storm. Protest flyers taped to telephone poles off Main Street reminded him of the looming fight ahead. Just as the officiant turned to ask if anyone had objections, Jake caught Marcus' eye. Panic flickered between them, and without fully understanding how it happened, the words slipped from Jake's lips. "I have something to say." The murmuring crowd fell silent. Lucy's smile faltered, and shock washed over Marcus' face. Jake took a breath, tension coiling tightly in his chest. He paused, feeling the weight of all their shared memories. "I can't just stand by and pretend everything is fine while everything we know is crumbling." Mark glared, his jaw clenched tight. "Not now, Jake. You can't ruin my wedding." But Jake pressed on. "We're losing our home, our jobs. This isn't just another day. It's everything we've built, everything our parents worked for. I can't sit back while you're marrying into a world that doesn't understand what we're going through." Tension crackled in the air. The guests shifted uneasily, some exchanging confused glances, others whispering. The weight of the moment felt like a lead balloon in his stomach. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he sought the courage to continue. "I love you, Mark, but I can't watch you turn your back on our family. I need you to see what's happening around us." A silence enveloped the church, heavy and penetrating. Then Mark's face shifted from anger to something resembling regret. "You don't know what you're asking," he whispered, a defeat that hung in the air like fog. "Yes, I do. I've seen our neighbors lose their jobs, seen how families are falling apart. Your wedding won't change that, but maybe if we fight together we can bring our community back." At this, Lucy stepped forward, her initial shock giving way to a determination that surprised Jake. "If we want to start a family, we should think about the families around us too. Maybe we can do something to help." Those words hung there, stirring something deep within the crowd. Slowly, heads began to nod as people absorbed her statement. Hope flickered to life as murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. "Maybe we can join forces," someone suggested from the back. "We can organize, fight back." Jake's heart surged. Could this be what unites them instead of tearing them apart? As he looked at Mark, he saw something flicker in his brother's eyes, a spark breaking through the darkness. But before Jake could fully grasp the change, the officiant cleared his throat. The moment hung heavily as the couple awaited each other's response. Just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, snapping the focus of the gathered crowd. Before anyone could react, the church doors burst open, and a group of factory workers, faces etched with urgency and determination, stormed in. "Jake, we need you now." Jake's heart dropped. How could he have known that the moment he chose to break their silence would cascade into chaos? But in his gut, he felt that this was only the beginning of something far more complicated, something that could either knit them back together or tear them apart forever. What would happen if he left the wedding now? Could everything change in an instant? Jake's mind raced, scrambling to comprehend the chaos as the factory workers surged forward. Their eyes were filled with a mixture of desperation and hope, and for a moment, the wedding forgotten, the reality of their struggle slammed back into focus. The guests were murmuring, glancing between the altar and the newcomers, confusion fluttering in the air like restless butterflies. "Guys, what's going on?" Jake asked, his voice strained yet steady. He stepped forward, feeling a singular pulse of urgency from the group. Among them, he recognized Tom, the foreman, his face smudged with grease and worry. "Is it about the factory?" "Yes," Tom exclaimed, his breath heavy with adrenaline. "An emergency meeting is happening right now. The owners are cutting more jobs. We need every hand on deck. We need you, Jake." Jake's heart sank. This was bigger than just 3 people at the altar. The wedding, the vows, the future, it all seemed to hang in a delicate balance, threatened by the real-world horrors of layoffs and closures. He glanced back at Mark, who looked torn between duty to his marriage and the cries of his brother. Mark's face, usually confident, was a tempest of emotions. "We can't just abandon this, Jake," he whispered urgently. "This is my wedding, our life. Your life?" Jake gestured at the crowd, at Lucy, who looked both heartbroken and bewildered. "What kind of life is it if we ignore the problems that are tearing apart our community? You can't just walk away from what's happening out there." Lucy shifted, her brows furrowing as she absorbed the gravity of the situation. "If the factory goes under, we could all be affected. You need to listen, Mark. We have to support each other. That's the only way forward. The crowd's energy swirled, their eyes reflecting the gravity of their circumstances. Jake felt a spark inside him. Perhaps this was something bigger than he had imagined. If they united, could they rise up together? Maybe, Jake said, his conviction building, this wedding can be something more than just a ceremony. Could launch a movement. We can show everyone that we stand together. Mark's gaze finally dropped to the ground, intertwining with Lucy's gaze as they shared an unspoken conversation. Jake watched, breath held tight, hoping this was the bridge to healing their rift. Finally, Mark looked up, determination softening his features. You're right. We can't just pretend everything is fine when it's not. But how do we do this? Before Jake could respond, Tom rubbed the back of his neck, exasperated. We need everyone. We need a rally, a community meeting where people can voice their fears, their anger. We need to get the word out. Tonight? Jake asked, a rush of adrenaline sparking in him. The fabric of the moment was shifting. He could sense that tension in the room was transforming. We can do this, Jake said, his voice steady. Let us get people talking. If we can combine this wedding with our cause, we could unify our community. We have to act now. The murmurs grew louder as people began to nod, enthusiasm igniting in the crowd. Hope glinted in their eyes, a fragile but bright flame. Tonight we can make a difference, Lucy rallied. Let us halt the wedding ceremony for now and focus on what truly matters. Jake looked back at Mark, searching his brother's face for some sign of agreement, some indication that they could fight this battle together. But just as he reached out for Mark's hand, another loud noise erupted outside, causing everyone to freeze in their tracks. The sound echoed ominously, and Jake's stomach churned. What now? The urgency surrounded them once more, and he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was coming would change everything they thought they knew. What could possibly be out there? It loomed, and a part of him wondered if their united front could withstand the trials ahead. Would they rise together, or would this chaos pull them apart for good? The noise outside grew louder, a rumble like thunder rolling over the nearby hills. The murmurs shifted to worried questions as the crowd instinctively pulled closer together. Jake could feel the tension thickening, knotting in his stomach. Each heartbeat echoed the urgency of the moment, as he fought to conceal the wave of anxiety threatening to crest over him. What was that? Someone whispered from the back, the fear creeping into their voice, allowing it to shake slightly. Jake pushed through the crowd, standing firm between them and the door. He felt the weight of their eyes on him, the expectations they had clung to in a time when everything felt uncertain. Everyone, listen, he called out, hoping to be a beacon amid the confusion. Stay calm. Let us find out what's happening. We're in this together. Lucy reached for Mark's hand, gripping it tightly. You know we can't ignore it, she said, her voice low but steady. We have to confront whatever it is. Mark nodded but looked back at the guests, his wedding gown fluttering like the unfinished dreams that hung in the air. They had come for joy, for celebration, and now all of it danced on the edge of collapse. I don't know what to do, he admitted, uncertainty filling the space where bravado usually reigned. Just then, a figure burst through the door, silhouetted against the fading light outside. It was Vera, one of the older workers from the factory, her brows knitted in panic. They're here. The owners. They're trying to lock us out. Gasps erupted. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline race through him, visceral and raw. What do you mean? He shouted, his gut twisting tighter. They're barricading the entrances. Vera panted, desperation draping her words. They don't want us talking to the press. They know if we rally tonight, we'll expose what they're doing. They can't let that happen. Pushing through the crowd, Jake stepped outside, the cool evening air hitting his face like a slap. He squinted into the dim light and saw a group of men in suits standing by the factory gate. Nervous glances exchanged between them as they huddled together, clipboard in hand. The sight boiled his blood. This was their community, their lives, and they were being toyed with by people who didn't care about them. Folks, he yelled, raising his arms to gain attention. This is our moment. They're trying to silence us, but together we can make them listen. The crowd behind him drew in breath, the fear mixing with anger igniting flame in their hearts. Lucy stepped forward beside him, emotion brimming in her eyes. Let us stand solid. We can't let them erase our voices. This wedding was supposed to be a celebration of our love. But tonight, let us celebrate our fight. We'll show them we matter. Cheers erupted from the crowd, a wave of determination surging. Jake felt his nerves coiling tight into something stronger, a collective heartbeat, a bond forged in shared turmoil. This was bigger than just a wedding. It was a stand against a future of uncertainty. Let us gather them all, Jake shouted, hope racing through him. Tonight we tell our story. We won't be pushed down. Suddenly, another shout erupted from the back. What if they try to hurt us? The fear was palpable, lurking at the edges of their bravery. Jake turned, catching Mark's eye. His brother's expression had morphed from doubt to something resembling resolve. We'll be together, Mark stated firmly, stepping forward. We can't back down. We have each other. With a unified front, the crowd surged toward the factory, hearts thundering in unison. But as they approached, the realization that they were stepping into a battle weighed heavily upon them. What would happen when they faced the owners? Would they truly stand strong? Or would the fear of losing everything bring them to their knees? Jake gripped the hope inside him tightly, unsure of the battle that lay ahead, yet willing to fight for a future that had just begun to flicker to life. Would their unity withstand the horrors of the night? The answer loomed just beyond the threshold, waiting to be revealed. The factory loomed ahead, its windows reflecting the twilight like dark mirrors, holding secrets too long hidden. As the crowd marched forward, a mix of determination and trepidation washed over them, faces set in fierce resolve. Jake could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins, his heart drumming in sync with the pounding footsteps behind him. They were collective, thousands of unspoken hopes and fears intertwined. Vera stumbled slightly as she kept pace, glancing back at the group they were leaving behind. What if they're armed with something? She fretted, her voice barely a whisper. What if they don't care who they hurt? Jake cast a steady look at her. They're counting on fear to control us. We can't give them that power. The steely resolve in his voice seemed to ignite something in the atmosphere. It spread through the crowd, sparking whispers of defiance as they reached the factory's gate. The owners stepped forward, their suits stark against the darkness. One man, taller than the rest, smirked. What do you want, Jake? His tone dripped with condescension, as if they were pests rather than human beings. This is not your place anymore. Jake's jaw tightened. This is where we work. We built this place. The crowd echoed his words, their voices rising like a wave crashing against the shore. Behind him, Lucy squeezed Mark's hand, glancing upward at her fiancé. We're not here to fight, she said, her voice strong. We are here to be heard. Mark nodded fiercely, the fabric of his wedding suit rustling as he straightened up. And if that means we have to confront you, then so be it. There was a galvanizing clarity in his eyes, an unexpected leadership emerging from the chaotic storm. The owner's smirk faltered for just a moment, the crowd encroaching closer with each heartbeat. Jake thought he could see the flicker of concern flash against the man's composed facade. Enough of this, the owner barked, the false authority cracking under the pressure of the crowd's roar. You can't possibly think this will change anything. Do you really believe a bunch of what are you, workers and some guests at a wedding can shift the tides? We can. Someone shouted from the back, amplifying their unity. The sound rippled through the mass of bodies, resonating with the power of collective voices filled with hurt, anger, resolve, and an unfurling sense of hope. Together, Jake repeated, rallying the words that had fired his blood just moments ago. We're stronger than you think. We are not silent anymore. This is our home. The tension snapped tight, drawing everyone in. Jake could see the glances exchanged amongst the factory owners, a mix of irritation and uncertainty. Beneath their stony exteriors, the fear of the crowd's unity began to seep into their hearts. It was intoxicating to see their facade falter. But just as victory felt imminent, A sharp crack echoed through the night, turning eager cheers into shocked gasps. A flash of light illuminated the scene as one of the owners gestured toward a figure emerging from the shadows. A small army of security guards materializing with grim authority. The crowd fell silent, the bright lights swirling around them like storm clouds, threatening to unleash chaos. The collective heartbeat escalated, an urgent pulse booming in Jake's ears, as he felt the weight of their resolve slipping momentarily away. "Get behind me!" Jake yelled, positioning himself in front of Lucy and Mark instinctively. He could feel their fear, raw and unfiltered, but resolve clung tightly to him, flaring back to life. Jake locked eyes with Mark, silently forging a pact: no surrender, no retreat. Just as he opened his mouth to speak again, a bright spotlight swung around and landed directly on him, forcing him to shield his eyes against the sudden brightness. "Now what?" someone muttered anxiously from the crowd. Jake took a deep breath, willing himself to meet the eyes of those gathered behind him once again. "We stand together whatever comes. We've faced worse than this." But would that determination be enough? As fear and courage waged war within, a new question hung precariously in the air: could they turn this impending confrontation into the catalyst for change, or would it shatter everything they had just begun to build? All Jake could do was hope and hold firmly onto that flicker of hope as the confrontation loomed closer. The spotlight was blinding, but Jake's mind sharpened. He could barely make out the figure behind the glare, but something felt wrong. The security guards stood like statues, arms crossed and faces set in hard lines, their mere presence sending a ripple of anxiety through the crowd. The owner sneered, clearly relishing the chaos. "Do you see this? You're outnumbered. You want change? Look around." Jake's stomach churned. Panic flickered moments before he answered. "We don't need to fight. We need to be heard." His voice echoed, a fragile hope in the clamor. Then, Lucy stepped beside him, her eyes fierce. "We're here to reclaim our voices, not throw fists." The crowd began to stir, uncertainty mingled with courage. It was a precious moment, a hesitation that Jake sensed could tip either way. "Don't give up. This is our moment," Mark said, his voice rising above the murmurs. "We're family here. Fight for each other." The noise swelled again, a swell of unity filling the air. But the guards pushed out, creating an impenetrable wall of muscle. Initially, the crowd faltered, stepping back. Fear crept in, whispering doubt. What if they were wrong? What if this was the end? Suddenly, a figure broke from the back of the crowd. It was Vera, her determination a beacon of light. "We've been quiet too long," she shouted. "How much longer can we let them take from us?" Her voice rang with a rawness that caught everyone off guard. The moment she spoke, the air shifted. The crowd echoed her words, a simmering anger erupting from their cores. No more silence. The chant built from one corner, then another, until it enveloped the whole assembly. Jake's heart raced as he watched. This was it, the breaking point. Lucy turned to him, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. Yet deep down, he could see she was ready to join the fight. But before Jake could fully respond, the lead security guard stepped forward, a threatening shadow with a stern hand raised. "You'll disperse or face consequences." Jake took a steadying breath, fighting to keep his heart from pounding too loudly. "We won't be intimidated," he called out, his voice cutting through the tense air like a knife, mirroring the fury bubbling just beneath the surface. Then, a deafening sound erupted. A shot? No, a firecracker, but the crack thundered through the crowd, scattering gasps and cries of alarm. Confusion wove through the throng, grabbing hold of Fear's leash more tightly. "Stay together," Mark urged, moving closer to Lucy and wrapping an arm protectively around her. But chaos was brewing. The crowd pulled back instinctively, a wave of panic flowing like a current. Jake felt their energy falter, their resolve splintering. He had to act. "Don't run," he shouted, reaching out instinctively to grab Vera's shoulder. "This is our fight. We've come too far to turn back now." With every ounce of willpower, he stepped forward, pushing through the uncertainty. He could see doubt reflected in the eyes around him. They needed reassurance, a sign that hope was brighter than fear. Together, he screamed, rallying everyone as the guards advanced, their stern faces unyielding. If we stand as one, they cannot break us. Just as the crowd breathed, kneeling before the crushing weight of apprehension, a voice pierced through the noise. It was an unexpected sound, a familiar chant from the very fabric of their community. United we stand, someone called, sparking the spirit of rebellion. The call reverberated, transforming a moment of fragility into a formidable declaration. As the chant spread, Jake glanced back at Lucy and Mark, whose faces now reflected the fire igniting within them. But in that instant, the owner signaled to the guards, and another shot echoed through the air. This time it wasn't fireworks. Go! Jake yelled, gripping Lucy's hand tightly. The moment hung heavy, hearts racing, pulses pounding loudly in their ears. Did they have the strength to stand united against this new wave of aggression? As they braced for impact, their eyes locked. Would they find a way to emerge together, or would this clash tear them apart? He took a step forward, heart pounding with each breath, ready to face whatever came next. Jake's grip tightened around Lucy's hand as he felt the weight of the world pressing down on them. The guards began to advance, their massive presence like thunderclouds, ready to unleash chaos. But instead of retreating, the chants grew louder, engulfing the tension in a wave of defiance. United we stand, echoed off the walls, bouncing like a jolt of electricity through the crowd. Keep shouting, Vera urged, her voice cutting through the panic. This isn't just for us. It's for everyone who has ever felt silenced. Her eyes burned with a fierce intensity, igniting something deep within Jake. Suddenly, the air shifted again, thickening with unspoken fears and raw emotions. Jake noticed some familiar faces in the crowd, neighbors, teachers, friends. All were strung together by a common thread of hope and desperation. He could feel their collective strength building, but would it be enough? Don't let fear win, Jake shouted, courage surging through him like wildfire. Our voices matter. We deserve to be heard. He could see the spark igniting in the eyes of those around him, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to determination. Then, as if summoned by his words, a figure emerged from the periphery of the crowd. It was Mia, clutching a sign that read, "We're stronger together." Her presence felt like sunlight breaking through a storm. The crowd turned at the sight of her, her unwavering spirit catching fire in their hearts. "Join us," she cried, and the chant morphed, echoing her rallying call. "We are the community. We are the voice. Together," Jake roared, spurring the momentum forward. The chant transformed into a chant of unity, a resolution made real in sound. But just as hope began to swell, the guards pushed forward. The clatter of boots against the floor was like a countdown to disaster. Mark stepped in front of Lucy, eyes steely but heart racing. "We stand our ground. We push back." There was no uncertainty in his voice, only a fierce determination. The crowd mirrored his resolve, each person finding their inner strength in the moment. But fear can be a powerful adversary. The guards moved closer, their faces set in grim determination. Suddenly, one of them raised a baton, a flash of silver sweeping through the air, a sharp contrast against the chaos. Another firecracker sound. This one was more unmistakable, more chilling. A flash of light exploded in the center of the crowd, and people stumbled backwards, gasping, shouting. "Get down!" Jake screamed, dropping to the ground and dragging Lucy with him. The world constricted around them. The chants faded. Just as he inhaled the sharp scent of adrenaline-laced air, something inside him screamed for action. He would not let this end in fear. "Remember why we're here," he shouted, fighting against the shivering terror. "They want us afraid, but we will fight for each other." His words cut through the panic, reigniting the fire in the crowd. The voices rose again, fighting the sudden wave of despair, stronger and more powerful than before. Then, amidst the chaos, a chant erupted from the back. "Forward! Forward!" It rang through the air, intensifying as it swept through the crowd. In that moment, Jake felt something shift inside him, a realization that they could be more than a crowd. They could be a movement. But as the chant grew louder, the guards responded with more aggression, pushing against the tide of humanity before them. Jake could see that one of them was already preparing to charge. Would their newfound strength be powerful enough to break through? His heart raced, uncertainty tightening its grip. The future was blurred by chaos, but Jake knew one thing. They couldn't back down now. Not when they were so close to something monumental. And just as he summoned the last bit of resolve, he caught a glimpse of Lucia's face, determined, steadfast, but also terrified. He couldn't let it end like this. He wouldn't. Fight with me, he yelled, resolve echoing in every word as he pulled her closer. Together we can make a difference. But in that pivotal moment, as the crowd surged forward to meet the guards head-on, Jake felt a tremor of doubt. Would this be the moment they changed everything, or the moment they lost it all? The clash was imminent, holes being drilled into the fabric of the night. The ground shook as bodies collided. The force of the crowd surged forward, a tide of voices and determination crashing against the barriers presented by the guards. Jake felt Lucia's hand slip slightly in his grasp, but he tightened his grip, unwilling to let fear take her away. All around him were faces lit with resolve, yet fear lurked in the shadows of their expressions. Shouts rang out, some filled with anger, others echoing profound fear. In that jumbled mass of humanity, every heartbeat seemed to pulse with a shared desperation. "Get ready," Mark yelled, his voice cutting sharply through the roar. The guards braced themselves, weapons raised, eyes mirroring the grim resolve in their stances. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, electrifying every nerve, urging him onward. But then, caught in a split-second hesitation, Jake thought back to the lives at stake. The neighbors he saw among the crowd, the ones who'd been mistreated, the ones who'd lost their voices. What if they were forced to endure this nightmare again? The thought, like a splinter in his mind, drove his urgency. "Keep pushing," he shouted, his voice hoarse but steady. "For everyone who can't." The words came out like a rallying cry, and as they did, a new wave of energy surged through the crowd. They felt it, the glimmer of hope rising, pushing back against despair. Yet as they surged forward, the guards retaliated. With a deafening bang, the shields were raised, clashing against the humanity that pushed against them. The sound echoed through the space, as if shattering the fragile resolve the crowd had built. Jake, feeling every ounce of that clash, looked at Lucy. Her eyes were wide, reflecting both fear and courage. "We stand together," he yelled at her, prompting a nod from her as determination hardened her features. But then, everything changed in an instant. A loud pop rang out from the central stage, accompanied by a blinding burst of light and smoke. The crowd stumbled backward, disorientated, fear creeping back in as panic rippled through the masses. "What is happening?" Lucy cried out, her voice barely reaching Jake amid the chaos. "It's a flashbang. Stay low," Jake replied, grabbing her face with both hands, forcing her to look into his eyes. "We can't break now, Lucy. We have to stay together." Just as the fog of confusion thickened, Vera's commanding voice cut through. "Focus. Breathe. We'll get through this." Amongst the panic, her presence anchored the swarm of fears back into possibility. The crowd began to regroup, the sound of their united voices rising once again amidst the chaos. "We are the community," they roared, charging back in defiance. Jake joined the momentum, pushing forward, refusing to let fear bind them. Suddenly, as they breached the line of guards, Jake spotted something or someone in the thick of the chaos. A figure stumbled forward, cries muffled by the clattering shields. It was Mia, her sign half-draped, tears glistening in her eyes. "Mia," he shouted, feeling an urgent pull within him. But before he could reach her, she fell to the ground, a guard looming over, baton raised. The scene froze, the world narrowing to that single breath. Jake's heart stopped as he watched her slip from their grasp just when hope felt palpable and real. What could happen next? Would Mia's sacrifice fuel their fight or spark complete disaster? Would they rally around her or falter when they needed each other most? The answers hung precariously in the balance, just like the moment itself. Jake's instincts kicked in as he lunged forward, desperation igniting his every move. Time seemed to dilate as he pushed past bodies, the shouts and cries blending into a dizzying cacophony. His heart raced, each thud echoing against the rising tide of fear that threatened to engulf them all. "Mia!" He screamed again, each utterance fueled by urgency. He could see her small and vulnerable against the towering guard, her face a mixture of determination and daunting fear. Something deep within him snapped into focus. This was not just a fight for freedom. This was a fight to protect those they loved from the crushing weight of oppression. Lucy stayed close, mirroring his energy, pushing her way through the crowd and refusing to be left behind. "We have to get to her," she shouted, breathless but steadfast. And it stoked the fire within him even further. Their voices melded into an unstoppable force, feeding off one another. The guard loomed above Mia, belt tightened, moving to strike. Jake could feel the heat of rage spiraling inside him. With every muscle straining, he surged ahead, fueled by a mix of fear and fierce love. A gnawing sense of urgency clawed away at him. He couldn't let anything happen to her, not now, not when they could still prevail. Suddenly, a sharp scream pierced the chaos, and it snapped everyone to attention. It was Vera, her voice rallying the crowd with an intensity that felt like a spark igniting gasoline. "Everybody stay together. We can't lose focus." The sheer power of her command galvanized the people around her. Suddenly, the uncertainty transformed into solidarity. Jake felt an electric charge in the air as people began to push forward, fear dissolving into determination. "For Mia!" someone shouted, echoing his sentiment, and their chant rapidly spread like wildfire. The crowd moved with purpose, creating a wave that crashed against the guards, bodies colliding in a deafening roar. "Keep moving," Jake pressed, hauling Lucy along as they slipped through the tumult. His eyes never left Mia, her gaze locked onto his, hope flickering like a fragile candle in a windstorm. Time was short. He could see the moment dragging out as the guard aimed at as they neared. Lucy gripped his hand tighter. "We can do this," she encouraged, her voice laced with authenticity that pierced through the din. The world around them faded, focusing only on the girl on the ground, the guardian above her, and the community rallying behind him. Then, everything shifted. A deafening clash rang through the air as the crowd surged forward, a collective force shoving almost independently of will. It was too late for doubt. Every person on the front lines stood as one, and a kaleidoscope of emotions surged within Jake: hope, fear, determination. Just as Jake reached out, the guard swung his baton. The impact collided with the spirit of the crowd, but it was too late to deter them. A wave of humanity crashed into the guard. Mia was safe, the crowd had shifted, and together they bound forth in unity. The guard stumbled backward, his authority crumbling as the community reclaimed its strength. In that split second, as Jake pulled Mia to her feet, her eyes brimmed with tears. "I thought I lost you," he breathed, the weight of their connection crashing against him. The crowd roared, a fierce collective voice that thrummed with life. But just as they began to breathe, a new threat loomed at the back. An eerie silence fell as the guards retreated, and something sinister shifted in the air. Jake's breath hitched. What lay beyond the tide of bodies? Would their moment of victory become the harbinger of an even greater danger? The answer hung tantalizingly as the crowd paused, sensing the imminent change. Life was never that simple, and as uncertainty crackled through the air, one question loomed overhead. How would they respond to the next wave of chaos threatening to engulf their newfound unity? Jake's pulse quickened as he steadied Mia, her eyes swimming with gratitude and relief. The crowd behind them echoed with shouts, a cacophony of defiance reverberating through the twilight. The guards trembled, the air thick with determination. Yet still, uncertainty lingered like a dark cloud. They had pushed back the first wave, but what lay ahead. Together, Jake rallied, looking around at the faces of neighbors who had once felt lost and invisible. He sensed a charge, a fleeting moment that could shift everything. For each of us, we fight for our community. Together, the chant surged, thrumming through the crowd with renewed vigor. Mark stepped up beside Jake and Mia, his face set and resolute. We're not just fighting for jobs anymore. We're fighting for the spirit of this town. His voice cut through the noise, resonating deeper than ever. With each shared word, the crowd grew bolder, unafraid of what lay ahead. Anyone who thinks they can push us down again will be mistaken. The guards regained their composure, grim shadows poised against the twilight. Yet Jake could feel the fear that once racked his community beginning to dissolve beneath the weight of unity. They weren't just witnesses to an unfair world anymore. They were warriors, each heartbeat a drum defeating the silent oppression sought to impose. Let us move, Lucy shouted, stepping forward, her hand clasping Mark South and pulling him close. We need to gather everyone. Our voices are stronger together. She turned to Jake, her resolve shifting from fear to focus. Let us find everyone we can't fight alone. Jake nodded, their purpose rekindling within him. We'll go door to door, school to school, every business and home. We will let everyone know we stand firm. The crowd roared in approval, their uncertainty swept away by the current of commitment stirring between them as they turned to march. A voice piped up from the back of the gathering. It was Vera, a beacon of courage standing tall against the encroaching darkness. This is just the start. We have to show them we're more than just workers, we're a community. Let us show them we care for one another. The crowd echoed her words, the energy rippling through like a branch breaking free in a storm. With newfound purpose, Jake led the charge, bolstered by the involvement of those around him. Each step was a resolute declaration against despair, each stride a resounding message of resilience. They made their way through the streets, gathering more faces, recruiting support from the hesitant and fearful alike, until the movement became an unstoppable force. The glow of community fire pits lit their way, casting warm light over the assembled crowd, growing larger with every moment, obliterating the shadows of doubt. People stood shoulder to shoulder with pride, chanting a new truth. Together, we stand. But as they reached the square outside the factory, Jake's heart sank a little. There, at the forefront, stood the factory owners with their cold, calculating expressions. They were flanked by a wall of security. But this time, the tension in the air felt different. This was a fight that they had prepared for. The owners think they can intimidate us, Jake said loudly, raising his voice above the hum of whispers that filled the gathering. But it's our time for change. We will not be silenced. And they cannot break us. Suddenly, one of the owners stepped forward, disdain dripping from his words. You think this is a game? You're simply workers a dime a dozen. You think this will change anything? Jake felt the anger bubbling inside him, but he pressed on. It won't just change things, it's a chance for healing, for a stronger future for all of us. Together, we're worth more than all the figures on your spreadsheets. The crowd erupted, a resounding echo of agreement, shifting the dynamic. This time, their voices filled the air, a melody of conviction that infused the squares etched by boiling anxieties. As the crowd surged forward, something shifted in the air. Fear faltered before their unity. Even the guards began to hesitate. It was a crucial moment, a tipping point. Jake and his friends stood shoulder to shoulder, and in that instant, he realized the stakes held far beyond this fight, for they bore the weight of each other's dreams and hopes, a shared heartbeat pulsing through the atmosphere. Now, Lucy called, eyes bright with fiery ambition. Let us show them our strength. We'll share our stories, expose what they do, and let everyone realize the power we hold. With that, the movement shifted once more, someone unfurling a banner that read "No more silence." A bold declaration broad enough for all to see. In that moment, it wasn't about heroics. It was about cohesion, about what it meant to be a true family and community. Together they roared out promises of perseverance, and Jake's heart soared. This wasn't just a demonstration. It was a new beginning, a way back to one another, where despair faded, replaced by unity and healing. Jake looked at Mark, their eyes locking as they shared a moment of understanding. No longer were they just brothers, but warriors, family confronting the chaos, reminding each other of their bond as the community marched forward through the square. The factory transformed before them, not a place of fear and darkness, but a beacon for hope. And so they propelled onward, resolving together to create the narrative that would steer their path forward, uprooting the darkness with the undeniable power they had discovered within. This marked the spark igniting their transformation, their fight blooming into collective strength. They emerged united, arms linked, and hearts full, and together, they stepped beneath the shadows toward a brighter future, where love, resilience, and the promise of tomorrow's hope would forge a new path for all. Together they stood ready to ignite a movement that was more than a protest, more than a family reunion, ready to become a lifeline for their town and everyone they held dear. Believe in the power of unity. The journey isn't over. This is just the beginning. Now is the moment to create change. So I'm calling you now. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that unfold. Leave a like now. Your support fuels the algorithm and helps spread these essential messages. Comment below with your heartfelt reactions and feelings about this amazing transformation. Your voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this story of resilience and unity. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Together, we can make a difference.